Welcome to Batshit, a frank and funny look at living with mental illness.
While we'll touch on several illnesses, Batshit is focused on those along the spectrum of bipolar disorders. I'm your host, Adam.
I'm your other host, Brad.
And we're both bipolar, so strap in and let's see how batshit we really are.
Spoiler alert, pretty damn batshit. This episode's topic, eating disorders.
Yay!
We have a very special guest, my favorite person in the world, Jessica Wall.
Hello.
Hi, Jessica.
How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Now, why don't you let our audience know exactly who you are and why you're the perfect person to talk about this?
Oh my gosh. My resume for eating disorder. Wow. Okay, let's get into it.
We saw it on LinkedIn.
You
That's
saw it
why
on
we brought
LinkedIn.
you
Okay,
in.
okay, that makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay, cool. Well, I have been modeling for about 12 years now. I started in Chicago, worked in New York. I've been in LA for about 7 years. I've done high fashion modeling, e-commerce modeling, pretty much anything you can think of. I've done it. And I've had the whole experience of agents, which is just like a really fun experience. Highly recommend if you want to like grow a backbone. But yeah, so lots of experience with the ups and downs of an industry that is based on how you look.
Sure. Now, when did you start? How young?
I started when I was 18.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do recommend that if you want to do modeling, at least start around 18. Any earlier, and it's really a journey in getting a thick skin very quickly.
Sure. I mean, I can't imagine a more toxic environment than
Oh,
being
they're out there.
Okay, fair enough. But for like a teenage boy or girl to be going through, then like that type of being constantly evaluated on how you look and how almost being quasi-assigned worth based on that's
Yeah.
got to be really hard.
I think the thing that's most difficult about the industry is that, one, the actual work is amazing. Like the work, the photographers, the people you get to meet, absolutely stunning people. The part that gets weird is when you realize that your worth is based on your size.
Yeesh.
And then as you go and get signed to different agencies and when you're in different locations, what size you are in at that location changes your worth. So
Yikes.
your size in New York means that you have a certain value, whereas if you go to LA, you have a different size and they give you a different type of worth.
Oof.
So
Ooh.
it's a fun process.
Sounds terrible. Sounds absolutely terrible. Can I ask what made you get into it?
I need a job, actually.
Okay, fair enough.
I need
Fair
a
enough.
job. I am the oldest of 6 kids from suburbs in Chicago. My dad's a contractor, and I was going to go to college for art school, and they were like, oh, $10,000 first semester. I was like, ooh, yeah, I'm going to get a job. I'm good. And then I worked for my dad for a year doing painting interiors, exteriors, putting down decking, doing roofing, pretty much anything you can think of in the cold in Chicago, wearing multiple pairs of jeans. Really fun experience. And you get to learn the fact that when you work for family, you're always the last one to get paid. And I was like, I love living in the same room as multiple sisters, but I think I need to move out. This is a lot of family. I think I'm set.
Sure.
So I actually had a friend of the family, his wife used to model, and he was like, oh my God, he was talking to my mom one day. He's like, oh my God, you should take Jessica into the city. She should model. And I was like, okay, I guess this sounds weird, but sure. I ended up walking into Ford Models, and agent came out, took a picture of me, handed me a contract, and I walked to the back, and 5 minutes later I was signed to an agency.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Wouldn't it be great
Yeah.
if that's how it always worked?
Yeah, right? That's insane. I'm just gonna do
Yeah.
Like, I just walked into William Morris today.
Right? Just have here's a contract, we want you. And
Right.
it's like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't expect that.
Fantastic. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So talk to me about, because you started in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then you went to New York
I did.
and then LA.
Yes.
So how old when you moved to each of those new markets?
So I was 18 when I started in Chicago, and then I moved to New York when I was 20. My agents called me on a Friday, and it was like, mid-July, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna send you to New York in like August. How do you feel about that?" I was like, "Oh, love this plan. Cool, great. I get to get out of Chicago. Beautiful." And then they called me back on a Monday, and they're like, "Hey, can you leave Tuesday for New York? They really want you." I was like, how about Thursday? I don't even own a suitcase. Like, I can do that, but give me a second. So I moved to New York with about $1,200 in my bank account, and I was like, let's make it work. Why not?
Wow.
So I was out there for about a year, on and off, lived in all kinds of very interesting living situations. And then I came back to Chicago. I was in Chicago for about a year or so, got engaged. Bad idea.
Okay. About to congratulate you. I will stop.
No. Yeah, don't do that. It's okay. And then was out there for a while. I helped with all kinds of family stuff. My grandmother passed away. Did everything and anything under the sun. Moved my mom to a whole new house. And then my agency flipped a coin, and they're like, "Hey, you want to go to LA, right?" I was like, "Yeah, definitely, for sure." So I was about 21, 22 when I first came to LA, and really fun experience. I also got to go to South Africa for 2.5 months the first year I was out here, which was fabulous. Highly recommend if you ever want to go traveling.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds so amazing and at the same time chaotic as fuck.
Oh, constantly. I live in limbo.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable in limbo. I live there constantly. I've been there for 12 years. Set up curtains and everything.
My favorite phrase you ever use is casual chaos.
Oh, always.
Wow.
Always. Constantly doing casual chaos.
See, I give you so much credit for that because I'm someone who exists within like a schedule.
Oh, no.
Or someone in like a box.
Oh,
Like I
no.
work well within said box.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
No, I don't know what that feels like. People are like, "What's your plan for this week? What does your schedule look like?" I'm like, I have no idea. Zero idea. But it's fun. I'll tell you tomorrow morning. Yeah.
So, within all that, what was your first experience? Not necessarily you having it, but at least seeing an eating disorder.
Ooh, seeing an eating disorder. I mean, every day. No. Well, specifically in modeling, when I first signed to Ford, one, you don't know anything. I was 18, and they're like, "Okay, so." Usually when you go into an agency, they'll take your hip measurement, your waist measurement, and your bust measurement. And they'll also do a thing called digitals, which is you wear a black bikini and they do front side back shots. And they send that out to clients so clients know what you, quote unquote, really look like. So when I first signed with this agency, they're like, "Okay, here are your measurements. You got to lose an inch here, you got to lose an inch here, and you got to do this. Here's self-tanner because you're paler than Casper the Ghost. And good luck. We'll see you in a month." I was like, okay, I guess. I don't know what to do. And the industry, one, it is built on the back of not educating people about how to work out and keeping people in isolation so that they can maintain power over said people. But within modeling, I've never met a single agent who knows anything about working out ever. And their answer is like, "Oh, well, just don't eat. It's okay. Just come back in a week and have like all your measurements different." And that just leads to all kinds of yo-yo dieting, one, but also searching for a fast answer to a very slow change.
Right.
Because you don't get changes within your body that last quickly, ever, in a healthy way.
It amazes me how the lack of education when it comes to fitness like screws people in any form of entertainment industry, and then the preconceived notion still exists. Like I still know women who refuse to lift weights because they're afraid of getting bulky.
Yep.
Right.
I'm like, that's not how that works.
Whereas men, on the other hand, will spend thousands of dollars on supplements to try to gain 2 pounds of muscle.
Right. Exactly. It's like it that's so twisted, and that's awful.
Yeah. So a lot of lack of education and just awareness in that. So I, also being from the Midwest, like they don't teach you anything out there besides like, I think the food pyramid at one point when I was a kid, like that's not even real shit anymore.
Presidential fitness test and food pyramid. That's all you need.
Oh, that's rough. So along those lines, the first interaction I had with any type of awareness of diet or changing my eating or anything was based off of, one, deciding to be gluten-free for some reason, and two, learning about the eat right for your type, which is eating based on your blood type.
Right.
Which, don't have anything against either thing. I was gluten-free for 5 years. Super fun. Definitely noticed a difference in my body when I ate it versus when I didn't. But then, bread's wonderful.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Pasta is Italy's gift to the world.
Right. So it was interesting.
And Monica Bellucci.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's
yes.
Molto bene.
It was interesting to start that journey of just like baseline having no knowledge and starting to navigate my way over the next 12 years through fad diets, through people's opinions, through trainers' ideas, through agents' ideas of how to get a result in my body that was unattainable, because once you get past a certain age as a woman, you're not going to look like you're 16 anymore because your hips come in, and that's just how it is. And it's just, you're not going to look like you're 16 forever.
Except Brad,
Yes.
you still look like you're 16.
Thanks.
I mean, that's a Danny DeVito 16, but it's a 16.
Well, you know, I started getting a receding hairline at 12, so it works, I think.
Well, it keeps life interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously you're surrounded by a lot of eating issues with food in general,
Yes.
based on. You talked about being gluten-free. You talked about eating for your blood type. I assume when you started doing that, you didn't view that there was anything wrong to try those things.
No,
right?
and in essence, I don't think there's anything wrong in trying any type of diet.
Sure.
Because it's all just learning what fits and what works best for your body, right? It's just like working out. Like me personally, I rather die than do HIIT training.
Sure.
Rather
Ditto.
do anything else.
Ditto.
Like anything. Also will not run unless I'm like running to save an animal. But it's
An acute animal. Like,
yeah.
no one's running to save a hippo.
no. Well,
You might
I
run
don't
from
know.
a hippo.
You
Yeah,
probably run
I
from a
would
hippo,
definitely
sure.
run from a
Yeah, I don't
hippo.
know what you could really do to save a hippo.
Yeah,
but,
true. Maybe if it's a baby.
Sure.
I would run.
Even then.
Yeah, even then. Even
Like,
then,
it's
I
like
might
a-
run
like
away.
a 400-pound baby. I don't know.
True.
Picking that up.
Yeah.
Doing squats.
That's my workout.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what Brad does.
I do the baby hippo workout.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Brad hits legs with baby hippos.
There you go. Yeah. So I think going through different diets and learning that there isn't one answer out there for you, and it's more of a similar with mental health and learning about your own mental health. It's finding what works best for you, finding how to communicate with your body rather than fighting against it.
Okay.
And whether it, for some people, you know, tracking their calories really helps them because they don't eat enough. And so they have to make sure that they are eating enough. Whereas you have other people who you track your calories and you're like, I ate an apple today. I am the worst human being alive.
Right.
So there's balance and everything works a little bit different.
Sure.
As long as they're not eating those cartel avocados.
No,
True.
Damn them. Did you notice a change in your mental health based off of whatever diet you might have been on at the time?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
how so? Yeah,
I mean, starving yourself doesn't really lead to clarity of thought. I mean, I wouldn't really choose the eating 400 calories a day diet to like really go for mental sharpness.
Sure.
Wouldn't recommend. And just like keeping yourself in a state of constant caloric deficit, even though calories aren't actually a real thing.
Nope.
It messes with your mental health and it keeps you in this state of, which the modeling industry takes advantage of feeling desperate, of feeling like nothing works, of feeling like your body isn't working with you, that, you know, oh, why is everything so difficult? Well, it's because you haven't eaten today, dude.
Yeah, that would do it. I could see
Yeah.
how that would be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
I can imagine the wild swings in emotional states and moods.
Oh,
that come with
always.
that also.
Yeah.
Oh, always.
Well, then try and stick to a diet when you're emotionally all over the place.
Yeah, and when
mean-
you wake up thinking about food because you've starved yourself the entire day before, I mean, it just leads to your brain speaking to you very rudely. And then the spiral of negative self-talk just takes you on a whole journey unto
Sure.
itself.
And you couple that with the instability of the industry, like what jobs you book, what jobs you don't book, where
Oh,
you're
yeah,
flying
that's
this
where
week.
it gets spicy.
Exactly.
You know, you told me something once that kind of stuck in my head in regards to this too, is that a lot of this comes down to bad photographers.
Oh yeah.
They don't know how to shoot or
Oh,
write,
yeah.
and so the answer that the agents give is like, well, you need to lose more weight.
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. The amount of photographers out there that don't understand lighting is criminal.
Sure. Sure.
But also, you have agents out there that are so committed to this way of thinking that is so archaic, but that girls need to be just skeletons of a human, and that, oh, that's fashion. And like, one, no, it's not. And two, where we are in society today, and the modeling industry has changed a lot over the past 12 years, in that there is more of a leeway in what size you can be, and more sizes are embraced, and more facial features are embraced and stuff like that. But it's there's so much bad work out there that when you have the people who are in charge of you that also have a limited understanding of the work and a limited I would say creative outlook about what your potential could be,
Right.
you can get stuck.
Now, why do you think those people still remain in power? Like, out of curiosity, because as you're saying, it's their archaic ways of looking at it. I mean, we experience the same thing in the writing and the acting field, so I get it. But I'm just curious about your perspective.
Well, one, there's zero protection for any models out there, which there's a few things going on that are trying to help have, more protection for models, but there is no HR. There's no protection for sexual assault. There's no one you can talk to if your agents are like, please lose an inch everywhere, or like, come back when you stop having fat everywhere.
There's no union.
No, there's no union because
Crazy. I've never thought of that.
Yeah, there's no model union. Yeah.
there's nothing to protect you, and there's also 500 girls standing right behind you that look exactly like you, who will do anything for the job you're doing and will also starve themselves. So there's this catch-22 of, you can be amazing at what you do, and then if you don't know enough about the industry, or if you don't know enough about standing up for yourself, you get taken advantage of and you get stuck.
Right. And there's no reason for the higher-ups to change their behavior if they're not being called out on it.
Exactly, and they're benefiting from it, and they're
Right.
making money off of it. I mean, model housing unto itself is a racket that they're making money off of.
What, model housing? What's model
you
housing?
don't know about-
I don't know
Oh
about
my
Do you know
gosh.
about model housing?
Vaguely.
Okay.
Vaguely, okay.
I assume it's
But
where
because of
models
her.
live. I assume it's where models live. I don't-
No. It's building model housing.
Oh, is it really?
Oh.
Yeah, it's a whole racket.
That would be nice.
Models building model housing.
Yeah.
Coming to Bravo this fall.
Ooh, I would make so much money off that.
You should.
Ooh,
What are you doing?
you guys send me power tools. I already have a little bit of a collection, but you send me power
There you
tools, I'll
go.
build you a house.
All of our listeners, Jessica Powers.
Done.
That's why she's here, actually. It's
Yes.
It's just
Just
a
for the
play
power
power
tools.
yeah.
That's the podcast serves to get me drugs. Jessica Power Tools.
Yep.
Done. Finished.
And
I'll
me
be-
heartburn. That's the
Done.
only.
Yeah,
I'll
and
be
Adam
back
Harper.
next week. But no, so model housing is usually an apartment run by whatever agency you're signed to. Well, there's two types. One is run by an agency that you're signed to, and it's usually for either underage girls, girls from out of town, girls from out of the country that need a place to stay that aren't necessarily going to sign a lease. Maybe they're just there for a couple weeks. Maybe they're there for Fashion Week. But it's basically a bunch of bunk beds shoved into a very tiny apartment. And they can charge you a lot of money for it. When I was in New York and I moved into the model apartment, they tried to charge me $800 a week.
Oh, I'm sorry. A week?
For a bottom of bunk bed, when there were 2 bunk beds in one room and 3 bunk beds in the other room.
Wow.
Yeah, very exciting. And that was before Fashion Week.
That's wow.
And when Fashion Week rolls around, they take advantage of girls can sleep on the floor and on the couch. You're fine. You're totally good.
But they're still charging.
They charge
Oh,
you for
yeah.
the floor sleep.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Floor sleep.
But the best part is that they take the cut of your rent out of your check before you get your check.
Ooh.
Yeah, because it's basically they're building up debt so that you owe them and that you can't leave. And so that
That's some
God, that's
fucking
like
mafia shit
Yeah.
I
right
was
there.
going to say that's like the company stores from the 1920s.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what that is. So, and depending on if that agency is good at booking you, depending on whatever politics are happening with the agency at the time. If they decide that you're small enough to send out for castings, that can all affect what check is coming your way.
Sure.
So if they're like, well, you should sign up for this workout class and this workout class, and you need to lose all this weight, and then we'll send you out for castings. You also have to realize that your pay is about it's about a month delayed anywhere you go in the modeling industry, because you'll get paid for 1 month theoretically. So you'll have a job, book the job, theoretically going to get paid.
Right.
You don't see that check maybe 2-3 months.
Yeah, 6 to 8 weeks is or 90 days. That's pretty standard.
Yeah. And then you have agencies who'll take their cut out of the check before it gets to you, and then you'll have to show up to the agency and be like, "Oh, so I have a check." And they're like, "No, it's like $20. You'll be fine. You'll
You
be
actually
good."
owe us money after
Exactly. That's
processing
usually
fees.
how it goes.
So they're putting you in the housing. They're taking the money for the housing
Yes.
out of your check. They're taking their 20%, I'm guessing.
Yes, 20% along with they're charging you for being on their website and charging you for comp cards
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I remember that.
and charging you to take digitals and charging you for any test shoot that they set up that they're also skimming off of, I'm sure.
Jesus Christ.
And then also
What a
delay, they'll delay when you get your check. And if you know how to make a fuss, you'll get your check. If not, it might be 6 months.
Right, and that takes years of like developing the backbone, developing the
Oh, yeah.
knowledge within the industry to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So you have these girls and guys who are in the industry for 5 or 6 years before they figure that shit out enough to actually step
Yeah.
up.
So you're doing work
Yes.
and you're massively in debt
Yes.
just to your agency.
Yes.
And then they come along and they say you need to lose 10 pounds.
Absolutely.
Good God.
Come on.
No wonder.
Come on. I don't. Why don't you think there's a union?
Because the turnover is so large. And because agencies were originally created to protect models and to be there to make sure that they had good jobs, that they had good rates, and that they had someone looking out for them. Now agencies are just like, well, it's a revolving door. Like if you're not
Right.
useful, you can leave now. And it also goes back to development of models. So you have girls that start out, and if you go and put time and effort into teaching those girls how to model, how to walk on a runway, how to, be in front of a camera, you're going to have a model that will make you, can make you 10 grand in a day, right? Whereas if you're just going for numbers and turnover, you can book a bunch of girls and you can have 15 girls making you $3K a day somewhere. So it's like there's a trade-off of how you want to go about it, but you can get to a sweet spot where you have a girl who knows about modeling, knows how to do her job really well, and you can put her in front of any client and you can book her.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be willing to develop that model, or you have to hope that she's willing to develop herself.
Right.
And I would imagine as far as getting a union going, everybody's starving, so nobody has the energy to.
Bro, well, there's also that, right?
Yeah.
organize.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Plus, like, why would they book you if you're being difficult? They'll just go with someone else that looks exactly like you.
Sure.
So did you experience any horror stories? Like, did you see any girls who they would get in these cycles and get in these eating disorders and it just wrecked them?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you get girls who would get dropped by their agencies. You would get girls who got addicted to drugs so that they could stay smaller, and then they would get dropped by their agency. And then you would end up with girls who would hang out with promoters because the promoters would go and take them out to dinner and they would get fed and it would be free, but then you'd only get one meal a day. So it goes pretty much anything you can think of. It's
Wow.
there.
God, that's freaking terrible. So okay, let's go back to the idea in general of eating disorders.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about your personal experience with them. Like
Okay.
When you found that, when you kind of recognized that you might have one, your process of processing it, and then
Right.
how you eventually started to deal with it.
Okay. So basically, I was about 6 years into modeling, and my agency was just being absolute trash. I asked them to release me from my contracts. I've been with them for 6 years, and I was done. I would wake up every single day hating life and just frustrated and hyper focused on food in all the wrong ways, and like on a cycle of binging and restricting of like, okay, I'll eat an apple and then I'll get to a point where I'm like, oh, I have to eat everything in sight. And it was just not good in any way.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, and then I went and told my agency I was done, and they refused. And I
They
was like-
refused?
They refused to release me from my contract, and I told them, well, I refuse to make you any more money. So I, waited out the 6 months of my contract and ended up, it worked out perfectly with timing and schedules and life, and ended up doing family shit. So that was fine. But in that process of leaving my agency, one of their last ditch moments was, oh, well, if you get your hips down to like a 34 hip, then you'll blow up. And I've been a 36 hip my entire career, which I've booked on, hasn't been a problem. It's just how it works. But in LA, you don't need to have a 34 hip, which is also just ridiculous in the first place.
Thanks for listening. Help us continue the conversation. Leave us a comment with your thoughts, experiences, or questions about mental health. Every opinion and viewpoint is valid. Just don't be a dick.
And for those of you listening, we're sitting here with Jessica. There's not an ounce of body fat on this woman.
Yeah, not a big person. Not a big person.
It's just tall and long. So they're like, we want your hips to be 36 or 34 inches. I was like, okay, fine. So my last ditch attempt with this agency before I told them to fuck off was that I went and did a 14-day water fast.
Ooh.
What?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
You're
Hold on 1 second.
Pause with the animals.
Adam's dogs are going nuts again. I will not be singing to you this time, though.
You just want to be best friends with everyone.
Yeah.
And potentially find the cat that's outside, or even the squirrel.
Eat some animal.
Eat some animal.
Oh, I think they've come to say hi to you.
Hi, baby. Hi,
Hey,
baby.
Beans.
Good news. Dogs start barking. Bad news. Now Beans is in here for the rest of the recording. So there you go.
But he just wants to be here because he's bringing food into the room with his name, and
It's
we're
true.
talking about
It's
eating
true.
disorders.
It's
So
exactly.
it makes sense.
He's like, me? Beans? Great.
Beans. We're talking about food. Yes. So I was really into. I got really into. What do you call it? Like intermittent fasting.
Okay.
Which is a very slippery slope if you're already into restricting food. And then started getting to that, which it can be really good for you, intermittent fasting. It can also be a tool that works against you.
I think that's one of the hardest parts, right? Sorry, not
Yeah,
to
no,
interrupt you.
go
Is
for
that
it.
all of these diets that you're talking about, in theory, in moderation,
Yes.
can be helpful.
Right.
Yes.
And you take them to the extreme.
That's when
And now
shit
it's
goes
unhealthy.
sideways.
Yes, 14-day water fast should not happen.
Nope.
So that's only for 14 days. You're only having water.
Yeah.
Good God.
I stuck to it though, which
That's
persistence.
impressive. Yeah, that's
How the-
willpower.
How the hell did you do that?
I just did nothing. I lay in bed for 14 days and did nothing. It was like miserable. Drank a lot of water. But at the end of that, I had a 34-inch hip, went into my agency. They were like, oh my God, you look so good. You look amazing. I'm like, okay, cool, great, awesome, wonderful. And then immediately they went and booked me on a photo shoot with a photographer that I had been purposefully dodging because I think his work is mediocre. And he's also on kind of a blacklist for being a little bit funky when it comes to how he interacts with models.
Awesome.
So super fun. I was like, ooh, so you want me to starve myself? You want to set me up with a photographer who has mediocre work and you don't care about my safety? Ooh, I'm really done. Cool. So that's when I told them to shove off. And at that point, I ended up going back to Chicago, and my youngest sister at the time, oldest of 6 kids, my youngest sister at the time was going through some medical stuff, and I ended up doing primary care for her for 8 months. So got to yell at a neurosurgeon. It was very satisfying. But the whole process of taking myself out of modeling and the mental headspace of every piece of food you put in your mouth determines if you get work or not, to I have to help keep my youngest sister happy and yell at doctors all day long because they're completely incompetent, really shifts the focus of where the food is and what is important with food. And when I originally went out to Chicago, I was gluten-free and vegetarian. not really something that you can do in Chicago.
Yeah, that's got to be hard.
I don't know if you've been to Chicago, but it's a lot of meat and potatoes and bread. You don't really get very many options. Plus, you live in a hospital for like 8 months. There's like, you're surviving on donuts because like if you don't survive on donuts, there is no happiness.
If you don't have donuts in your life, there is no happiness. I mean, I think that's just fair to say of anyone.
Yeah, the best kind of donut though.
See, okay, since moving to Los Angeles, I got introduced to Primo's, which has the buttermilk donuts, which are freaking amazing.
They are.
Yeah. That's for me. What's yours?
Have you been to Sidecar?
I know Sidecar. I have not been to Sidecar. worth a trip.
Yes. What about Blue Star Donuts?
Yes.
Okay. They're amazing.
They're very good.
The raspberry one, very good. Have you been to Donut Friend?
No, where's Donut Friend?
Oh, dude, you are slacking.
What are you talking about?
You're
yes,
slacking.
2 out of 4 ain't bad.
I don't know
still
about
slacking.
any
You
of these.
don't know about any of these.
I still eat. I eat Krispy Kreme.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
What are you selling things for your junior high school? You eating Krispy Kreme donuts?
Well, actually, Ad, we're trying to take a trip to Washington D.C.
Let's sell tickets and magazines. We can do it. So I went to take care of my sister, and while I was out there was just a very clear awareness that my entire interaction with food was a little bit off the rails.
Sure.
Little bit crazy. And I ended up sticking to being vegetarian, which I still am. And decided to eat bread because Midwest and survival.
And bread.
And bread.
And bread.
And bread is amazing. And while I was out there, I actually ended up connecting the dots of my eating disorder, which I was really struggling with binging and restricting, which is you eat a lot of food and then you don't eat any food. And then you eat a lot of food and then you don't do any food. And the mental cycle of just beating yourself up goes along with it. And so when I was out there and taking care of my sister, I realized, wow, this pattern of eating goes all the way back to my childhood in being the oldest of 6 kids and, surviving off food stamps and infrequent food from, my dad getting paid, because whoever wants to pay their contractor? Nobody. Yeah. Especially if you have money. You never pay your contractor. So rude. So growing up, there was always food in the beginning of the month, and by the end of the month, you were always like, that can of beans in the back of the pantry kind of looks appetizing, but not really. So when you take that and then accelerate it within the sphere of modeling to you eat food when you get paid, and then you have to survive on, plain yogurt and granola, and hopefully that will take you to your next check. And then you have your agency on top of that saying, "Ooh, you need to be even smaller." Just adds to the whole crazy mental cycle of interacting with that. So when I connected those dots, I also ended up reading a book, Brain Over Binge, and the statement that the little head inside your brain telling you to eat food is actually not being mean to you. It's literally just the survival tactic that you are starving yourself and your body is trying to survive. So it has nothing to do with it is morally good or not good, or you're bad or you're evil for putting that piece of food in your mouth. It is literally just the lizard brain inside of you being like, you are starving us. I would like food now. And realizing that was like, that like flipped a switch for me of like, okay, so I am not purposefully trying to fuck over my entire career by eating a handful of almonds. I'm just starving myself. Okay, cool. I can eat food now. So when I realized that, I started looking into intuitive eating, which is basically you eat when you're hungry and you eat when you're not hungry. And within that space, I have become very purposeful in I eat food that I really enjoy. I eat when I'm hungry. I don't eat when I'm not hungry. And I really won't eat bad food. It really is difficult when you have an ex-boyfriend and his mom made a Jell-O mold and put it on your plate.
Jell-O mold.
Like, really bad.
Was it a savory Jell-O mold?
It was yes. And there was mint in it, and it was green, and it was bad. And you're like trying to be really polite because it's Thanksgiving, but it was bad. Like, I don't do well with bad food. So I will purposefully cook anything, anywhere for anyone to avoid bad food. But finding that space and being intentional, and also getting really into cooking and realizing that the food I can surround myself with can be a happy space rather than a space surrounded by stress and anxiety and like, ooh, you're not doing enough or you're not good enough to be able to deserve this food. It's like there is no morality when it comes to food.
Right.
At all. Like just take it completely out of the equation. And once you start there, it's like, okay.
And that's an interesting thing with dieting in general, because even if you don't have an eating disorder, there's kind of a morality that gets placed in most of these diets.
Totally.
On what you eat.
Right. And again, assigning worth to how much you accomplish with said diet, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh man, are you able to get into ketosis? Wow, you're fucking amazing, man. Let me tell you about how awesome you are.
And you know what's interesting? Like you were talking about how these agencies don't know anything about diet and exercise. I've talked about this on the show before. I lost 100 pounds coming out of the pandemic. And the way I did that was by increasing my calorie intake.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Because it increased my metabolism.
Right. You mentioned this. Yeah.
I mean, I had to, food quality was a big thing. I wasn't increasing my food intake with Taco Bell. That's how I got the 100 pounds to begin with. But
you got balance.
Yeah,
Balance.
yeah.
A little bit of tacos, a little bit of, whole foods and just being aware.
Yeah.
It's fun how you said, like, I don't eat bad food.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's key big time to how I diet as well. Is like, if I want a cookie, I'm going to make the cookie.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to go and buy, like, Chips Ahoy.
No.
Right? Or if you sit there and you're like, okay, you want a pie? Mm-hmm. Make it.
By the way, those chocolate cookies you made.
The double chocolate
Those
chip?
were fucking amazing. I think I ate like 6 of them.
Well, understandable. So right now, I'm a quick side note. Adam has been laid off recently. So when he gets laid off, he's not working. He's used to working. So instead of working, he bakes.
I love it.
So yeah, it's like I was making all these crazy cookies, and Brad was here was it last week?
Yeah, I think so.
And I was like, some double chocolate chip cookies over there, and it's just you just saw his eyes just kind of light up.
Oh,
It nice.
as they should.
It makes you feel good inside.
That's good.
Because that's what food does.
Yeah,
Food makes you feel good.
It should.
Yeah.
And like that's very nice that you got to bake. I was told as a kid I had to let my sister have something because she was the second oldest and she was really into baking, so I wasn't allowed to get into that.
Let her have this.
Let her have something. Let her have something.
She needs something.
Let her feel joy.
The only way that'll happen is if she learns how to bake.
Yeah, she got really into it. She made some pistachio scones that were pretty amazing.
What?
Yeah, lemon drizzle biscottis. She was pretty talented. But
man.
I know how to cook really well, and I feel like I do a little bit of Frankenstein baking. I'm like, nah, it'll work. Yeah, and it generally does. Yeah,
I try to bake and then I just end up eating the dough.
there you go.
That's the other problem,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
Yeah.
I only bake if I know I can give most of it away. Because you can't, it's very hard to make a small amount of baked good. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I rewatched Bridesmaids not too long ago, and the premise of Bridesmaids is Kristen Wiig's character had a bakery, then she lost the bakery, and now she's sad. And there's something else to do with the plot, but that's for the purposes of this. There's a scene where she's like, I'm sad, I'm gonna bake, and she makes a single cupcake.
What?
A single cupcake.
How do you do
And I'm
that?
sitting there going, how the fuck did you do that, Kristen Wiig? Because one egg, like you can't portion out an egg. How did you make one cupcake? Or
Okay, I got the answer for you though.
oh, really? Go. You can make one cupcake?
I mean, you make a mug cupcake. Like
What's a mug cupcake?
Oh,
and see,
yeah.
this is the part of like you being aware of how you cook things. So and like trying
Snap
to make the
at it.
smallest
I know, seriously,
amount.
coming at me now.
Right? No, you make I mean, you can look it up anywhere on the internet, but you just find a recipe for something and you can like make a mini cake, you can make a mini cupcake in a mug, usually in the microwave, and then you have said baked good, and
but
it's personal size.
But I'm thinking
It's
about
not as good,
Right.
but it's an option.
But I'm thinking about, for instance, the double chocolate chip cookie recipe that I make. It takes one egg, maybe 2 eggs, it makes 5 dozen cookies. So it's like if I cut
Yeah.
that recipe in half and I only
Yeah.
use 1 egg, I'm still making 2.5 dozen cookies. So that's why I'm curious as to how you would make, like, unless it's like an alternative recipe for the cupcake.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Could be.
Some kind of vegan egg.
There you
Oh,
go.
the vegan eggs. Ooh, or you get the egg whites.
Yeah.
Like egg
Oh,
whites
yeah.
in a
Yeah,
can.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
a good point. You
You
can
can
do
do
that.
that.
Way. Yeah.
Both of you how food is such a great pleasure in life,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also communal.
Oh, totally.
When you're meeting friends, when you're having a networking thing, like you're going to lunch, you're going to dinner, and if you're starving yourself, I imagine a lot of that social experience just disappears.
Makes it kind of difficult, just a
Right.
little bit.
Well, you were talking about like the modeling agencies isolating.
Oh,
you.
absolutely.
And not only does that restrict the social interaction, your growth, and so forth, but if you're in a vacuum, you start normalizing behaviors, and you start
Absolutely.
normalizing treatment, which is completely not okay and not normal.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, there's a lot of like creepy,
Everyone?
predatory. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's also like when you end up going to casting calls or you end up making friends within the industry and you end up having conversations with other models and you're like, hey, so how's the agency treating you? And that's where you get your, information. That's where you get people who are like, hey, that's probably not okay that they're treating you like that.
But that's if you're meeting models that remain in the industry, because you said yourself there's a revolving door.
There is a revolving door, and once you get past like year 3, you're like you meet other girls who've been in it or other guys who have been in it, and you're like, okay, we've stuck it out. We've made it to year 3. By year 5, to always ask for the email of whoever is running accounting, so you immediately go to them to ask for your check.
Sure.
So it's you grow with the people, and you also start getting booked on jobs with regulars and stuff like that. So you keep meeting people who are about the same level or about where you are in the industry too.
I guess I have. Let me ask you this: How is your family taken to your career? Like, do they? What are their thoughts and?
Oh, I got a range. You want the full range? It's really spicy.
Let's do it, baby.
Okay, full range. My dad told everyone I was gonna be an army nurse and continued to tell everyone I was gonna be an army nurse even after I started modeling for a while. That was really exciting.
Okay.
Super fun. Really, really fun. The recruiter rejected me, and I didn't want to do it because he was like, "Oh, you're not going to leave the service single." I was like, "Ooh, this is not for me." Okay,
all right, thank
I
you.
am backpedaling. Bye. My mom was very much, "Oh, I support you." Generally speaking, as long as I don't tell her too much, she's down for it. She had someone ask her when I first moved to New York. They're like, "Oh my gosh, are you worried about Jessica moving to New York?" She's like, "Nah, she'll be fine." It's basically my mom in a nutshell. She's like, "You'll be fine. You'll figure it out." I'm like, "Yeah, I will. That's true." My sister right after me is actually married to a guy in a cult and chose to move to Indiana from Chicago.
Someone chose to move to Indiana?
Yeah.
That's abuse. I don't know.
know. And she has 2 kids and they don't believe in birth control and the whole fun thing. So her husband thinks I'm going to the devil because I model. And apparently she must think everything he thinks. So I'm damned to hell, according to her.
Well, I mean, you're probably damned to hell, but it's probably not for the modeling.
yeah, I mean, theoretically.
You know what I mean?
It's definitely for other things.
Yeah, definitely for other things. Definitely for other things. Yeah, I took her on one shoot before she ended up meeting this guy, and it was at the Dunes somewhere in Indiana or somewhere out in the Midwest. And I changed out in the middle of wherever. I took off my shirt, put on another shirt, because that's what you do on site. No one's
Right.
walking back to the car. And there was no one around, and she was just like, "Oh, you took off your shirt." And I was like, "Yes, these are tits. Congratulations, you identified them. Well done." Yeah, she couldn't stand that. So going to hell, according to her. My other brother didn't really care. He was like, "You are just so uncool. I don't understand what you're doing with your life." But
He said a model was uncool?
I mean, but they're my siblings. They think I'm desperately uncool.
Sure. Okay. All right. Keep going. Sorry. Fascinating.
There's a list. My next sister is like, "Cool, but your work smile, I know what your work smile looks like, and it's overrated." I was like, "Okay, thanks."
Wow. Instagram
that's-
generation.
I know. I was like, "Okay, cool." My youngest 2 siblings, my brother is like, "Dude, I thought your life was so cool, and I learned about all the places you had to live and all the roommates you had and how terrible your life was, and your life sucks. You're really not cool." So that was his opinion. And then my youngest sister, I've been in a couple music videos, and she thinks I'm cool as fuck. So
there you go.
I have one person on my side.
There you go.
Yeah.
Would you have encouraged your siblings to get into modeling?
No, absolutely not.
Would you encourage anyone to get into modeling?
Oh, there you go.
Well, okay, for the fact that it's a good resource for traveling. It's great if you're okay with living in limbo. It's a really good level of learning how to self-educate on a very tight timeline. So if you're okay with having your own opinion and sticking up for yourself and like getting really comfortable with no being a full sentence, and educating yourself about business, about your taxes, about everything and anything under the sun when it comes to health and fitness, about learning how to be in front of a camera, go for it. Do it. Wait until you're 18, but do it and realize that you can walk away anytime, and always go and negotiate your contract, because you can always get a 1-year contract starting out. They don't tell you this, but you can always negotiate for a 1-year contract starting out. Some agencies try and get you in 3-year contracts and 5-year contracts. It's a bunch of bullshit. So always negotiate for your contract. You can put stuff in there like, I don't want to do nudity. I don't want to wear fur. Like you can ask for things in the industry, and they will be respected if you make enough noise. Realize that some people are not going to be happy that you use your voice, but fuck them.
Sure. And, to that same end, even if, let's say, they're not involved in a modeling agency, but in the modeling industry, sorry, not agency, and they're starting to find that they have the same tendencies that you or other models might have found towards food and towards... What advice or suggestions do you have for them?
All kinds of things.
You almost can't see this, but she's like rolling her shoulders,
all kinds
cracking
of
her
things.
knuckles.
All kinds of things. So one, getting to a place where food becomes neutral for you. Okay, so that's whether you're getting yourself out of an eating disorder or you're kind of on the slope of an eating disorder is potentially developing. Taking a moment, maybe journaling, maybe doing something else, totally up to you, but realizing that food can be neutral,
right,
in how you interact with it. Doesn't have to be good, doesn't have to be bad, it can just be neutral. And then especially when it comes to how food does affect your body and how whatever body dysmorphia that goes along with it and how you view yourself, that if you eat one bite of something, you don't instantly gain 10 pounds and you don't actually look any different. But finding something within yourself or like visually where you can keep checking in and being like, hey, that hasn't changed. That part of myself I can love, and that can just be like something that's fine. So like when I was first coming out of my eating disorder, my body dysmorphia was pretty bad, and it was like, oh, everything's changing, oh my gosh. And it's like, no, actually it wasn't. But I started by being practicing talking to myself nicely, but also I picked to like my eyelashes, because your eyelashes aren't really going to be affected by what you eat one way or another unless you really get to an aggressive point of anorexia or whatever. But you just pick one thing that you like that isn't something that's going to change your eye color, the shape of your ear, something just random, right? That you can be like, hey, I can look in the mirror and say like, you have not nice eyelashes today, or like, your ear looks particularly good today. And you just start this habit and this pattern of talking to yourself kindly, and it just grows. You feed it a little bit every day. It's like a little plant, and you just give yourself some sunshine, give yourself some nice words.
I love that. Like, no, I mean, I absolutely love that. I mean, forget whether or not you may have an eating disorder, just practicing, like, that's a form of the self-care that we keep hitting over and over again. Like,
and it's difficult
it's
when
very
you're dealing
difficult
with something like this.
Yeah.
I was telling her earlier, like, she's been key in me practicing self-love recently.
Because you need to. I mean,
Absolutely.
it just, how can you expect to get better, to feel better, if you're not taking care of yourself in the most basic way, which is to tell yourself that you deserve to be better and that you're worth it to be better.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's...
And again, to, like you said, find these things about yourself that you like.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
And also, I think one of the other moments of clarity was when I was taking care of my sister, and being around someone who is she had all kinds of fun medical things going on, but I was so protective of the space that we interacted with, and that people would come in and they'd be like, oh my God, poor you. I'm like, no. We don't talk like that here. We are laughing, we are smiling, we are giggling, there's a little bit of progress every single day, and we are noticing that, and we are talking kindly to ourselves. And that made such a huge difference in her recovery and everything that she was going through. So having that dialogue of like, if I take care of someone else with this veracity and with this attention to detail, why don't I do that to myself?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And like having that moment of like, maybe I should take care of myself like I would take care of someone I love. And like, what does that look like? What intentions do you put out there for yourself? And how do you talk to yourself in that space?
That's great. That's because you're right. Like taking care of someone else, I think will, because if we don't treat ourselves well, right? Like I don't know which of you out there treat yourself well. I don't always treat myself well, but I do my best to try and treat my wife well, or my dogs well,
Right.
or my friends well. And why in God's name would you do something for your friends or your dog or your wife that you wouldn't do for yourself?
Exactly.
Adam feeds me cookies.
All the time. All the time. I'm just like shoveling them in Brad's mouth.
Yeah.
And yet I'm like, I don't eat the cookies? That doesn't make any sense. 0 cents. 0 cents.
No, but it's true. It's true. And I think especially when you're dealing with mental illness, it's difficult to practice self-love.
Yeah.
Because you automatically feel broken because you have one of these things. And then the behaviors that you do while you're in an episode make you feel shitty about yourself.
Yep.
Whether it's depressive, manic, if you're schizophrenic, borderline personality disorder, whatever it may be, you come out of those states and you just beat yourself up. And I think it's hard a lot of times to practice that kind of self-love. And it's something that you have to be cognizant of and you have to be active with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I love about the simplicity of what you were saying with just like, I like my eyelashes.
Yeah.
Or I like the shape of my ear.
Yeah.
Right? It's like something that, you're not going to be able to affect no matter what you
Right.
again, unless you're talking about really drastic
Right.
stages of
Levels
anorexia or whatever.
Other things, yeah.
But in general, like if you're sitting there and you're like, I really like my voice.
Yep.
Or I really like my walk. And like it can
Yeah.
be something as simple as that.
Like what's
Yeah.
something you like about yourself, Adam?
What's something I like
Ooh,
about
I like
myself?
this. We put you on the
Well,
spot.
way
Let's
to
go.
go, Brad. Thanks for
Let's
that,
go.
you jackass. What's something I like about myself? I like my singing voice. I think my singing voice is pretty solid. And so I enjoy that about myself. What's something you like about yourself, Brad? Yeah, see, not easy.
Put you on the
Is it?
spot. Let's
Yeah,
go.
asshole.
Let's
Huh?
go.
Huh? How's your self-worth?
All answers must be responded to immediately.
I like that I tend to think of other people and care about other people a lot.
Nice. And is yours eyelashes? Is that your thing?
Yeah, we'll still stick to eyelashes. I mean, it's. I feel like that's where I started building my.
Yeah, so you're healthier than we
Kinda.
are. Like you have multiple things you like about yourself.
I like my jaw. I think I have a good jaw.
There you go. There you go.
I like my ability to eat 3 pizzas without slowing down. Is that
Dude,
like
that is solid. But what type of pizza?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Deep dish
Doesn't-
pizza?
Sure.
Really?
All day, baby. Let's go to Gino's East. We can do this thing.
Okay.
Is that the one Joe Manganiello owns?
Is he? Does he own
Or
that?
is it Joe Montanate?
Joe.
One of the Joes.
One of the Joes. You know, good old Joe. Jess, this has been absolutely fantastic. We really appreciate you coming on and talking about all of
Absolutely.
this. And, you know, we're not here to solve anybody's problems. We're not here. We're just here to provide different perspectives. And your perspective is so unique and so well-rounded and adjusted.
Oh,
You-
well, I worked really hard for it, so I'm
Well,
glad.
that's just it. Like, you did the work.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, you worked your ass off to be the healthy person
And
that
let me
you are
tell
today.
you and our audience too. Fantastic artist.
So then
Oh
there
my
you
gosh.
go.
You should see her paintings.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. And now I'm
she's
blushing.
blushing a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, now she's
definitely.
blushing a little
Definitely.
bit. Well, we had to get you back for calling us out, or
Yeah.
making us. You didn't make us call us out, but you encouraged us to call us
Good,
out about
good.
something
Yeah.
we think about ourselves. Amazing. Jess, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
This has been awesome. What was that name of the book that you mentioned?
Brain over binge.
Brain over binge. We'll
Yes.
put a link to that in the comments of the web of the podcast if y'all are interested in reading it.
Yeah. And I would just say that, like, I think the biggest thing when it comes to starting conversations with people who have eating disorders, who you think might have eating disorders, or maybe even just talking to yourself, realizing that, one, you don't have to attack to solve a problem. Like, you don't have to go in guns a-blazing doing the whole thing. Sometimes just being like, hey, can I cook for you? Or, hey, you know, this food really makes me happy. Do you want to try a bite of it? And, like, realizing that you can go in gently and that can still make change.
Yeah.
And change happens slowly, and that's the best type of change out there.
I think that's the hardest part for anyone with any sort of mental illness is the idea, much like trying to get into physical shape, is like it's a slow process. It's not
a very slow process.
It is not a quick snap your fingers and I'm well adjusted now, or now I have a 34 waist without going on a 14-day water fast.
Exactly, which is insane.
Which is insane.
Which is insane.
We
but,
all acknowledge insanity.
Yeah, but that's also how you build your foundation.
Yes.
And realizing that it's okay to go as slowly or as quickly as you need to. And that's also where, you find intention with, I'm going to sit down and actually enjoy this food. I'm going to enjoy this moment. And it's going to be okay if I'm sitting in my car and eating a bagel, or if it's, I made a whole meal for myself, I'm going to sit down with utensils and a fucking fancy ass napkin.
There you go.
And
There you
just
go. Fancy napkin.
Right.
I had 2 jalapeno cheese bagels today.
There you go.
Onion cream cheese.
Ooh, where'd you get them from?
Western Bagel.
Yeah, Western Bagel.
Yeah.
That place is right by my house.
Oh,
and
man.
I wake up in the morning at 5 a.m. with my dog because he's a jerk. And I just come out the house getting hit in the face by bagel.
Well
and
done.
it's just, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's you have to indulge every now and then.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Everyone out there, make sure you indulge. Make sure you take care of yourself. Take care of the people who love you. We love you. Thank you.
And food is good.
And food is good.
Eat it.